Aina could not help but smile. She was just like that back then, however, when one finally met the person that meant something to them. Hey, daydreaming again? Sigh, not one of you adults are carefree. Wheein helplessly waved her hands about. That absolutely adorable expression caused Aina to pinch Wheein's little face. However, the award presentation will be at the Milky Way Alliance's headquarters at Roland Garros. You are not thinking of escaping your duties to attend, are you? If my mom finds out about this, I'll be dead meat too? Wheein stuck out her little tongue. She was really afraid of her mom. In fact, there was no one in the royal family that was not afraid of her. Aina smiled and blinked her eyes. Do you think the beautiful and wise princess of Aslan is qualified to present the awards to the guests? Yeah, mommy praised you for being capable as well as being able to uphold the image of the empire. The old men at the Union Academy of Sciences would love to have you there. Plus, you'd be able to secretly date too. Haha, 3 birds with 1 stone. You really are smart, sister, Wheein retorted. Bang! Aina smacked Wheein's head. What do you mean by date? He should be properly addressed as older brother, do you understand? I know, you are always bullying me. Okay then, my most adorable little sister. You have sacrificed so much, tell me what you wish to do. I will give you a hand. This little girl liked to hide her evil intentions. Haha, nothing much, actually. Just remember to bring me along when you go out to play. Wheein showed a sly smile. This was when Aina realized that she had been tricked. This little girl had predicted what she would do. In the past, not many people knew the true identity of Wheein, but as she followed Aina around, more people began to take note of the little princess. Although Wheein was under the protection of the law for minors and no harm would come to her, a lot of people were secretly concerned for her. This had resulted in her freedom being restricted. Why should Wheein be restricted though? Her art required inspiration after all. The entire Aslan royal family's public relations institution became busy because of the first princess's decision. To Aina, she only had to suggest an idea and the entire institution would complete it at the fastest possible speed. Student Wheein shook her head as if she was an insightful old man. Ah, women. After Aina disconnected her skylink, the corners of her mouth curled up. She looked more brilliant than ever, blindingly beautiful. Dear older sister, according to my personal experience, you cannot afford to treat boys too well, or they will become arrogant. He might even end up liking another girl. You must let him know that the girl he is dating is the best. Aina smiled. My most adorable little sister, wherever did you get your personal experience from? And also, aren't you underestimating your sister's charm? Aina was confident in this regard. Wheein sighed, forget it. She was too lazy to persuade her even further. In fact, she was merely worried about others doing evil things to her. She did not want her cousin to invest too much and end up regretting it. Why was it that people could be wise when handling other matters but become blinded when it came to matters of the heart? At this moment Wheein's skylink started to ring. It's Angela. Pick it up, it might be something urgent, Aina said. Wheein unwillingly picked up the device. She hoped that this wouldn't be another message telling her to return home. But Wheein's expression suddenly changed and her little face showed anguish. This startled Aina. Wheein, what happened? After a while, Wheein shook her head. Older sister, do you remember some time ago when I wrote a song but was not satisfied with some of the lyrics? I uploaded it to my official website for anyone to see and, well, the results. Here, you listen to it. Not only were there lyrics, there was even a singer for the song Wheein had written. The singer had a familiar voice, a voice which possessed deep emotions. Turning on the lights and seeing the lonely bed in the room. Turning off the lights and an indescribable pain in the heart is all that is left. Life passes by like the years, and with the whitening of the hair. And as you left, there were no news of happiness. With the past fading away, with the fading dreams. Along with the numbing of a heart, I miss you so very much, but I can't find traces of you. Wheein was totally immersed in the song. This had a melody that reminded her of her own songs as well as her style. Although she had listened to Not Afraid as well as the other tracks, this was the style she preferred the most, but she did not expect the lyrics to have created this sort of feeling. I still reminisce every now and then, I still relieve the memory. I still cry with my eyes closed, I still pretend to not care. I really miss you very much, but I keep lying to myself. This was the voice of a girl, and it spoke of unrequited love. I really miss you very much, let's keep this a secret. I really miss you very much, let's keep this in my heart. Aina and Wheein were immersed in the song. The voice was nowhere as sweet as Wheein's, but this voice belonged to a girl, and she sung it as though it were her own life story. They were both deeply moved by this. After listening to it for the second time, Wheein's eyes turned red. She was feeling very emotional, but perhaps every artist was like that. It was as if both the singer and Wheein had crossed space and time and could relate to each other. Wheein had always fumbled around with the lyrics, feeling that something was missing. It turned out that the emotions of yearning and pain behind the voice were what she needed but had never experienced. It sounds really good, congratulations. This song, Aina really likes it too. This singer is pretty good. What an intense feeling of infatuation. Let me see who she is, I want to hire her as my vocalist. Wheein was stunned upon seeing the name. Aina was also shocked, because this name was very familiar to the both of them. Yi Zissou on the faraway earth. A girl looked out her window. Her mind had already wandered off into the distance. She was working towards her goals. The harder she worked towards them, the closer she got to Aina, but the further away she moved from herself. I still reminisce every now and then, I still relive the memory. I still cry with my eyes closed, I still pretend to not care. I really miss you very much, Yi Zissou was singing from her own heart. Separation had not created more distance between them but rather made her reminisce more. But Yi Zissou could only keep her feelings in her heart, as this was the only way they could still be friends. Immortal Puluo's galaxy, the core hub of the Milky Way Alliance, and also where the Milky Way Alliance's headquarters was located. A giant planet filled with colorful lights which also acted as a deterrent to invaders. This planet symbolized the nature of human interstellar travel, to conquer and dominate. After the Milky Way Alliance stabilized, this area became the political and cultural center of mankind. As the headquarters of the human race as well as its allies, it was a neutral territory. It was only responsible for the affairs of the Milky Way Alliance. Thousands of warships that were armed to the teeth orbited around the planet, performing a variety of tasks. When it came to things like area control and defense, they were the best. They even had advanced means of delivering supplies and transporting passengers, but none of these ships were controlled by businesses. These services were free of charge on the planet of Roland Garros, sponsored by the Alliance. One could enjoy all the benefits of this level for free, but if one wanted premium treatment, they had to pay for it. The headquarters of the Milky Way Alliance was also one of the greatest creations of human interstellar civilization. It had been hailed as the Great Wall of the Star Age. This artificial planet was the culmination of the efforts of human civilization. Inside it was a captured black dwarf star. TL note. Wikipedia, Dyson sphere. After numerous levels of alterations, the gravity of the black dwarf star was transformed into a never-ending energy source. This super-heavy star represented the pinnacle of mankind. If there was ever a need, this star could be transformed into a star-destroying weapon. This was the representation of the collective power of the members in the Milky Way Alliance. The current chairman of the Milky Way Alliance was Ryan Jones from the Gemini Union. He had just taken office this year. The Gemini Union was a powerful system with 5 habitable planets and it had 2 stars in stable orbit. Ryan's public bio stated he was 170 centimeters tall, but those who knew the truth stated otherwise. He was in fact only 160 centimeters tall. The difference in height could be explained by the platforms in his shoes. I was born on Ep and grew up on it. If you grew up under Ep's gravity and could grow to 150 centimeters, I'll serve under you. Every time someone ridiculed his height, this was how Ryan would retort back in a rude, joking tone. But that was before he became chairman of the union. No one dared to joke about this after he assumed the position of chairman. The chairman of the Milky Way Alliance was not the supreme commander of the Milky Way Alliance. The galaxy committees were the ones who ruled this alliance. They were its top 10 permanent members. Each member of this committee held a key, and all 10 of them were required to activate the planet-destroying weapon, Roland Garros. The chairman was more akin to a housekeeper, coordinating some of the daily affairs and mainly overseeing the development of science, technology, and culture of Roland Garros. It is decided then, Tess. Urge the Andromeda Commonwealth to clean up the pirates before the arrival of Christmas. Or at the very least get them out of the league's core business operations, they have seriously disrupted the stability. Ryan ended the long-distance call through a wormhole. His pressed the index finger and thumb of his right hand on his temples. He held his coffee cup with his left hand and prepared to take a gulp, but he realized that the cup was empty. His secretary had not refilled his cup, which meant that he had reached his daily coffee quota. If he drank any more, that would mean disrupting his sleep for the night. That would then eat into his performance efficiency the next day, and once his efficiency was disrupted, everything after that would be in a total mess. The union's official events on his desk were sorted according to color, with yellow being the most urgent. These needed to be given top priority. Blue meant that the think tank had made a specific proposal for that document and it only required his signature as approval to be completed. Red were the most complicated and thorny cases. This usually meant that it required protracted negotiations. Purple indicated special events that could not be dealt with immediately and required lengthy considerations. The most terrible of them was the bold, black color. These cases meant that he had to make decisions for them by today. He pressed the button to request for more coffee and forcefully pressed down on his temples. He prepared to deal with the next tricky black-colored case. Following the Aslan Empire's firm grasp on power, the Milky Way Alliance's influence grew stronger in the last 100 years. The wars in the galaxy had decreased by 70% when compared to the last century. This was proof of the Alliance advancing human development. There had to be appropriate changes when humans had developed to a certain point. Aslan, Purple Channel. That efficient secretary of his had sent him a message. It was brief, but it demonstrated the importance of the situation. Purple. This was a special situation that did not require immediate attention. However, Ryan immediately chose to settle it immediately. In the Alliance, Aslan was a special existence, and it had priority in many areas, especially since Aslan was now fully supporting the Alliance and was contributing to the Milky Way Alliance. He opened the channel, and 3 seconds later, Aslan's first royal housekeeper's calm expression appeared in front of Ryan's eyes. The news that was passed down to him caused Ryan to widen his eyes. There is no other alternative. In order to show our respect towards the princess, we will assist her in extending invitations throughout the Alliance. Aslan's first princess and the future empress wanted to present awards to the Alliance's university students who had significant contributions in the sciences. Aslan continued to demonstrate its affinity towards innovation and growth. It has to be said that Aslan was the empire that possessed the strongest military strength, and its current actions served to dazzle others. The previous time they had made a request regarding Earth, in the past, Aslan had despised the backwater solar system and felt that it was just an insignificant place. However, Ryan just couldn't understand the situation. The Alliance had so many activities going on, yet the Aslan Empire had set their sights on the University Students' Science Awards presentation. 3 months from now was actually the universe's Nobel Prize presentation. Was that not a more suitable platform to demonstrate their might? At this point, Ryan smacked his forehead. The princess, Aina Aslan, was a student. The University Students' Science Awards was something that would be close to her as it celebrated individuals of her age. Furthermore, it would be able to expand her influence among peers of a similar age. The princess was being nice. He would have to personally handle this situation. Aslan's Royal College. In an independent training room, under the influence of 10 times gravity, 2 people were panting heavily as they exchanged blows. One of them, even though he was huffing heavily, still possessed a regal air. He was Aslan's rising star, the Sword Saint Aurora. Confronting him was a person who was no less famous. Both of his hands were grasping onto a longsword that was as tall as a human yet was only 2 fingers wide. The sword gently swayed in front of him, much like a living creature, twisting and turning. If one looked closely, they would realize that on the blade of the sword, it consisted of numerous dragon scales that were joined together. It seemed as though the sword was flexible and would be able to magically twist and turn during a fight. The person was none other than sword magician Oz. He was a commoner but had also become one of the Empire's rising stars. He was strong and his name was known by many. The two of them were Aslan's twin rising stars of the younger generation. We will stop here for today. Oz suddenly sheathed his sword and spoke lazily. Aurora's long sword drew an arc in a beautiful flourish before he placed it back in its sheath. His movements were like that of a beautifully painted work by an artist, graceful and artistic. It was a pity that in this gravity chamber, there was no one else other than Oz. If he was in public, his handsomeness coupled with his graceful actions that happened naturally would undoubtedly cause numerous girls to swoon over him. Oz helplessly shook his head. There is no need to tire ourselves out. Aurora let out a slight smile. Nobles have to always act the part. Nobles, PSH. When have we ever been serious? If you win, you have the right to woo the princess. Otherwise, you should scram, said Oz. More importantly, how could such a noble and holy thing be treated so nonchalantly? UB*TCH. Can you hurry up and tell me? What happened? Oz was infuriated by this chap. The distance between the two's social statuses was large, but they were very good friends. This was something that the people around them could never understand why. Firstly, our duel has to gain the recognition of the princess, especially our promise to each other. Furthermore, it has to be in public. We need to invite a respectable referee. Ah. Where are you going? I haven't finished speaking. This is very rude. Aurora had not finished speaking, but Oz had already walked off. That brat Aurora was quite easy to get along with when he was silent. However, once he started talking, it made people so furious that they would like to kick his face in viciously. Of course, that train of thought would only come from the sword magician Oz. Wang Jung and the rest had no break at all. When one round of training ended, they were marched off for another day of training. At the end, other than a few who had managed to stay alert, the rest were relying on their willpower to stay awake. Even then, 15 people had collapsed. However, these individuals were not eliminated. Eliminating such warriors would just be too cruel. After another day of training had ended, no one even had any energy left in them to eat. All of them fell asleep in a couple of moments. Some things could just not be hidden. Until the end, only Achilles, Lear, Lai Xin, Taros, and Rastin were able to remain in a decent state. Of course, there was now the addition of Wang Jung. Such training was considered child's play. To be frank, although the training wasn't light, in actual fact, Wang Jung ought to have felt quite tired. However, instead, he actually felt quite comfortable. This was because whenever his body felt tired, he could feel an influx of warm energy entering his body. Although it was weak, it was able to reduce his fatigue. Wang Jung's first thought was that he was photosynthesizing. Could it be he had become a tree? Of course, that was a joke. This was the strength of the primordial regression technique. This was what allowed one to become a super soldier. Bonehead was not exaggerating. Wang Jung was keenly awaiting the primordial regression technique's second stage. After a week, the second phase of training had ended. Su Yan felt quite emotional. This group of participants had been the most monstrous batch yet. Regardless of the training, they had been able to handle it and would rather faint than withdraw. Lear, Achilles, and Lai Xin had demonstrated their capabilities as captains. Rastin and Taros were not bad, but as they had experienced too much and were in different positions, the two of them lacked something inside their bones. On the other hand, that Wang Jung was a completely different thing altogether. Although his qualifications were no different from the average participant and he lacked leadership ability, he was extremely tough and he could handle even the toughest training and after that could still eat and sleep as per normal. It was like he was a simple-minded but physically well-developed fool. In comparison, after struggling as best he could, Zhang Shan had fainted a total of 6 times during the second phase of training. This could also have been considered to have been a new record. However, this person still persisted to the end. Although he was physically the weakest, his spirit was commendable, hence he was not eliminated. Furthermore, a soldier with strong willpower was extremely important. Seen in another way, his existence would motivate the others. Yet willpower could only bring one so far. During the third phase of training, he would most likely be unable to prevent himself from being eliminated. On the spaceship, in the end, there were only 66 participants left. Half of them had already been eliminated. They looked towards Demon Island with a tinge of nostalgia. This experience had branded them indelibly. It could be considered a form of transformation, even including those who had been eliminated. All of them had reached a new level. Those who had to leave had left. Those who remained would continue. The second phase was truly hell. No one could imagine what the third phase would be like. From the two phases of training, it could be seen that the group from the moon was just too strong. The unbeatable Achilles with his 8 stars were unquestionably strong. Currently, no one was on their level. This was also a tradition of the moon. They had decided upon their captain early on and they often showed absolute power. However, these individuals from the moon were gloomy because Otto's had been eliminated. According to what Otto's had said, it was likely that Taros was the one who had acted. On the other hand, Taros did not say anything to agree or disagree with that fact. On Earth's side, Lear performed quite satisfactorily. It could be seen that he was quite strong. However, he did not seem very competitive, and there were even hints that he was trying to keep a low profile. Despite that, that fatty Luo Fei's true colors had shown and attention was shined upon him. Lear definitely possessed a good sense of judgment. That fatty had performed too shockingly during the second phase, other than the fact that he liked to complain. Additionally, Earth possessed quite a few decent people. Wang Zheng, Meng Tian, Zhang Runan. It was a pity that the Earthlings were too factional. Their relationship with Lear was ordinary, and they even treated Wang Zheng as a leader. Yet Su Yan was clear that such actions were impossible. Looking at the current situation, Achilles had no problem seizing the #1 position. Furthermore, as a person from the moon, Su Yan was very concerned about him. Everyone, I would firstly like to congratulate you for completing the second phase of training. You have taken yet another step on this long and winding road. The third phase is also the last phase of training. It is space training. Su Yan smiled. No one seemed very surprised. This was something that had to be experienced. To be a warrior in the age of space exploration, being accustomed to space was a foundational ability. Those of you sitting here might have experienced some form of training, or perhaps this might be your first time for some of you. Regardless, all of you need to adapt quickly. Falling short at the last step would be a pity. After spending a period of time with him, everyone knew that Su Yan was a smiling tiger. Although he seemed warm and approachable, he was definitely one who was merciless. Sir, this is not really fair. Could we not give those who are here for the first time a bit more time? Zhang Shan asked. Being used to space was something normal to the people of the moon, the Republic of Karagal, Hades Republic, and the sort. Some of them might have even experienced space in primary school. However, for the people of Earth and Mars, it was not the case. They were mostly like Zhang Shan, they had never had any training in this aspect. As a result, Zhang Shan could only clench his teeth and steel his resolve to ask a question like this. He did not want to fall at this last step. Kiki, Zhang Shan. This world has never been fair. If you don't want to be eliminated, you need to work harder. When it came to this aspect, Su Yan did not like to scold his students. He would always patiently explain himself. However, this time, it was as good as not saying anything. The spaceship arrived at a spaceport near the moon. This would be the training location of the third phase. This place is specially designed to train for space warfare. Get ready, you will undergo a basic test. From their expressions, it looked as though it was not the first time Lear and the rest had been here. Were they just going to experience a weightless environment? With the standard of IG, it would definitely not be so simple to merely be able to maintain one's balance and to move effectively in zero gravity. These were not a big deal for those who were extremely athletic. When the training shuttle's doors opened, what appeared in front of the participants was a giant, sphere-shaped space. Inside were numerous stars that simulated the sky. What was this all about? Su Yan looked at the participants. The test is simple. All of you will go in. Once you have entered, the door will close. The entire space will rotate and you have to find the exit. Whoever finds the exit will have passed and the sphere will rotate again. The participants then entered the weightless area. For people like Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan, it was their first time experiencing this. Once they entered, they felt strange. It felt as though their minds were buzzing and as though their brains were going to fly out of their heads. Meng Tian's performance was not bad, and she had quickly adapted to the situation. It was clear that she had some training in this area. For the people from the moon, those brats were extremely at ease and stayed upright. It was as though there was no difference in gravity to them. The people from the Republic of Karagal and the Hades Republic also performed decently. These people from space cities were extremely familiar with weightlessness, so this was not difficult for them. Zhang Shan covered his mouth. FK this. He actually felt like vomiting after entering zero gravity. Everyone was looking at him. Even those who had no common sense also knew that puking in zero gravity was extremely disgusting. Zhang Shan tried to resist. He had to resist. He could not humiliate himself. It was said that when one was dizzy, they ought to focus their attention on something. He tried to focus on something. That's right, beautiful girls, beautiful girls, beautiful girls. Nude girls. Nude girls. At this point, Zhang Runan's image appeared in his mind. In a flash, Zhang Shan was finally at peace. FK. The supermanly sister was truly quite tyrannical and fearsome. After approximately 10 minutes, everyone had gotten used to the zero gravity. The three generals were also observing the participants' performances. During previous IG trainings, they had no time nor interest in observing. However, this time it was different because other than the 5 captains, there were just too many other outstanding students. In the past, in order to ensure that more people would pass, they had to reduce the difficulty of training. However, this time, despite training being even tougher, the number of people that passed was even greater. The three of them could see signs of the solar system recovering from a state of decline. Those from the space cities will have an advantage in the third phase of training, Lai Wuqing said as he shook his head. Lai Xin was still performing well, but the rest of the Martians were a bit slower. You can't put it that way. This training is about giving them confidence in space. Dramok smiled. All those who had been pilots knew that as a pilot in space, it was easy to lose one's sense of direction. This was considered just the smallest of things. In space, there wasn't even the sense of up and down. If one was alert, that would be fine, but in the midst of battle, many soldiers would definitely become lost. Hence, being able to identify their position in space and to gain that confidence was a basic skill. Su Yan, you can begin, Meng Ao said. He was most concerned for Wang Zheng at the moment. He was extremely interested in this young man. It was clear that it was his first time in a zero-gravity environment. However, what his eyes saw was that he was neither flustered nor helpless. Instead, he saw a sparkle of excitement in his eyes. It was as though war was a game to him. This sort of person was either a genius or a madman. Yes, General, Su Yan replied. All participants take note, we are about to begin the rotation of the sphere. After he spoke, the only exit closed. The entire sphere began to rotate and everyone focused their eyes on the position of the exit. However, as the sphere rotated, the entire sky was filled with stars, which caused everyone to see stars instead. The rotation was not fast, but when it finally stopped, everything had disappeared. Edison immediately pushed against the center column and was the first one to rush out. He had memorized the position of the exit. However, very quickly, Edison's entire body slammed against the wall. Failure. What is going on? The exit was clearly over here, Edison said bitterly. Bang! An electric current coursed through the wall and Edison's entire body was paralyzed for a moment. At this point, Su Yan's voice was heard. Don't randomly guess where the exit is. Mistakes will be punished. Edison, -1 point. This brat really is a fool. The circumstances have clearly changed, and his actions were pointless. It was clear that everyone became more cautious. Under thousands of staring eyes, making a mistake was minor, but embarrassing oneself in front of others was not. Wang Zheng gave a small smile. He had been ready to launch himself forward, but he saw that Zhang Shan had already flown forward. Wang Zheng paused for a moment. When everyone saw that it was Zhang Shan, they laughed. Earth's relentless mountain maiden. 1. This was his nickname given by the rest. He fought repeatedly but was defeated repeatedly, and even despite being defeated repeatedly, he continued to fight repeatedly. This was a strange group of earthlings. Wang Zheng seemed quite reserved, but he had already performed 2 miracles. He had tied with Achilles for first place and had not been lapped during the training. Meng Tian was beautiful and capable. Zhang Runan looked like a real man. Even Zhang Shan was like a maiden compared to her. Zhang Shan did not hold back. He rushed in the direction of his choice with all his effort. If he made a mistake, the force of the collision would definitely almost knock him out. In addition to the electric shock, he would definitely take a serious blow. Everyone's mouths widened into large smiles. Just as they were expecting a human pancake to appear, Zhang Shan knocked open the exit. Everyone was shocked. Su Yan also couldn't believe his eyes. Zhang Shan had created a new record for the quickest to exit. Standing in the area where gravity was restored, he gently dusted his uniform. Such a simple game, does this even count as training? FK. What a B** tard. That's right. This mountain grandpa liked to act cool. On the surface he seemed calm and composed, but deep down, he felt extremely redeemed. He had finally given those guys a taste of their own medicine. Too easy. The three generals couldn't help but smile. Looks like we forgot something. Zhang Shan is from the physics department and his father is a famous physicist from Earth. Spatial awareness comes very naturally to him. The feeling of being first was absolutely refreshing. He could now leisurely watch the others while scratching his head. Just because he looked large and muscular, it did not mean he was a fool. This brother was actually a traveler of the path of wisdom. In battle, there was not much need for physics concepts. However, Zhang Shan had been looking at spatial models since he was young, and they were significantly more complex than this. Orientation and positioning was now ingrained in his very bones. Replay the scene slightly. All right. Good. Stop. The screen froze. Dramok's eyes lit up. On the screen, just before Zhang Shan had moved, Wang Zheng had already started moving in the direction of the exit. From his position, it seemed as though he had chosen the same location Zhang Shan had gone to. However, when he saw that Zhang Shan had moved, he had stopped. Dramok did not miss that subtle action. This brat is truly heaven-defying. Lai Wuqing couldn't help but exclaim. To be frank, he was very conflicted. He was significantly conflicted. To see such an excellent seedling not possess ability X, and as his gene score was just too low, his chance of awakening an ability was just too low. Even if Wang Zheng had a gene score of 60, they would definitely spare no resource in helping him awaken his abilities. His mind told him to let Wang Zheng go, but his heart told him otherwise. With his performance, Wang Zheng kept the generals at the edge of their seats. Even Dramok, who sought perfection, couldn't let him go. Otherwise, he would never have noticed such a small thing. Perhaps it was chance. Continue, Meng Ao said. The zero-gravity sphere started to rotate. After experiencing it once, everyone opened their eyes wide. It was as though their eyeballs would fly out of their sockets and stick to the exit. Yet once the rotation stopped, everyone was disoriented again. In just a flash, Wang Zheng flew out. There was no difficulty in this. The door opened. When he entered, Zhang Shan was already waiting for him and the two of them shared a high five. Mighty 007. This was truly relaxing. At this moment, everyone knew that it was not luck. In addition, he had made his decision so quickly. It only proved that such a degree of disorientation in space held no meaning to them. Actually, it wasn't that easy. It was just that these individuals were people who could very well win the Milky Way Alliance's University Science Awards. After several rotations, people would gradually become disorientated. Before long, people started to puke. It was fortunate that everyone had brought bags to puke into. If not, the entire place would resemble a garbage dump. This task was significantly more difficult than the second phase. The second phase could be completed with sheer grit. However, for this phase, if one could find the exit, that would be great. If not, well, one would have to pray to the gods. Achilles, Lear, Rastan, Taros, and Lai Xin were able to find the exit within 10 minutes before leaving in that order. It was clear that the ordinary people would require quite a bit more time before they could find the exit. Without the orientation from the ground, it required one to first adapt their body to the zero gravity before they were able to get a feel for finding the exit. There were also a few individuals who were punished. For example, their old friend Carl. He vomited from the start to the end and had been electrocuted over 20 times, but he was unable to find the exit. Meng Tian and Zhang Runan were able to find the exit within 30 minutes and were considered average. Student Zhang Shan was motionless with an imposing aura. One by one, Those who came out finally realized that the mountain maiden had been acting cool, but they could say nothing about it. It was clear that in the third phase of training, he had performed excellently. The slowest individuals actually vomited till they fainted, and some did not even get out of the sphere. There were 9 of them. The winds had changed and they finally blew in favor of the mountain maiden. During the third phase of training, physical fitness was not important, what was important was the mind. Wang Zheng, Zhang Shan, Achilles, and Lear were invincible in this aspect. Achilles and Lear were the first ones to adapt to the situation. They were behind Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan, but not by much. Some people were born with the ability to adapt effortlessly, with the ability to perceive multi-dimensional structures clearly. Many of the participants also took quite a bit of time before being able to move in their desired direction accurately. Usually, it was easy to move in their chosen direction in space. However, in this situation, they realized that they were unable to. Furthermore, in zero gravity, performing difficult turns could easily spell disaster if they could not control their bodies well enough. Many participants wanted to show off their abilities in zero gravity by coming up with a string of poses. However, when the training began, they couldn't control themselves and ended up vomiting all over the place. In the midst of all this, the third phase had finally been completed. The one with the best results was Zhang Shan, so naturally he felt very proud. Actually, Zhang Shan knew that Wang Zheng had let him go first. Zhang Shan really needed the extra points. Being first would allow him to stay on the IG team, so this was incomparably important to him. Back in space, the mountain maiden was extremely proud and he felt invincible. The 3 phases of training had ended, and the IG selection would temporarily pause. Originally, the decision of who would pass would have been made immediately, but this time it was different. There had been changes to the schedule as there were 60 participants left. They would return to the college and await the second selection competition. When faced with such an excellent number of reserves, Meng Ao and the generals had to be careful. They had to pick the best of the best. Regardless, after this selection, everyone had made new friends and new enemies. To the people of Earth, the students of Ares College were incomparably proud. Zeus College only had 2 students left and Apollo College had been completely eliminated. Ares College's most glorious point was that all 4 had participated and all 4 had been chosen. Additionally, Meng Tian had gotten the top score for Phase 1, Wang Zheng had the top score for Phase 2, and Zhang Shan held the top score for Phase 3. Ares College had not felt so proud in ages. The 4 of them realized that when they returned, the entire college would be there to welcome them back. In truth, Wang Zheng and the rest were shocked. They had only left for a month. Who would have expected that they would have received such a warm welcome? Wang Zheng, you're awesome. Zhang Shan, I love you, give me your babies. After hearing all of this and indulging in cheers, Zhang Shan straightened his head and looked forward. The one who received the warmest welcome was naturally Meng Tian. She was a female goddess. Within the cheers, only Zhang Runan was silent. The upcoming IG selection would not be so relaxed. 1. Zhang Shan's Shan means mountain in Chinese. Hence the nickname Mountain Maiden is a pun and an insult simultaneously. Ji Yute felt quite proud. This was what it meant to live. He had originally thought that he had been forced into a dead end, but in the darkness, a glimmer of hope appeared. These 4 really made him feel quite happy. When one reached Ji Yute's age and position, all that was left to do was bicker and compete against other similarly old and prestigious people. However, what was most important to them was to prove to themselves that they too could be a good principal and develop their students to their best. At their age, withdrawing from society quietly was equivalent to denying one's achievements throughout their life. They had to go out with a bang. Being mediocre was something no one wanted. In the group of people, Yan Xiaoshu, Yi Zisu, and Mei, Du Qingqing, Yao Ailun, and Chen Shu were cheering the most vigorously. Frankly speaking, when Wang Zheng and the rest had left for the selection, they did not expect much. So long as they did not get themselves eliminated, that in itself would be a blessing. But who would have expected such a result? Upon returning to a familiar dormitory, Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan heavily collapsed on their beds. It was truly too comfortable. Hey, don't just lie there. Did you meet any pretty girls who you can introduce me to? Yeah, The selection was full of beautiful girls. Zhang Shan smiled, as beautiful as the manly sister. The looks of anticipation on Yao Ailun and Chen Shu's faces were quickly replaced by looks of shock, as though they had been hit by a lightning bolt. I can't believe that you were able to obtain such results. It looks like the standard of this batch isn't much, Yao Ailun spoke candidly. Zhang Shan immediately sat up. Bull's tea. This brother here lost a few layers of skin to obtain these results. With your puny frame, you'd definitely die in just half a day. Yao Ailun and Chen Shu looked at Wang Zheng. Wang Zheng merely nodded his head. Mountain Maiden isn't bragging, it was truly difficult. At this point, the entire dormitory fell silent. Mountain Maiden? Yao Ailun and Chen Shu looked at each other in the eye before exploding in laughter. Zhang Shan felt quite helpless. That B***tard had clearly forgotten to tell them why. On the other hand, in the female dormitory, a large group of girls had crowded together. They were currently asking Meng Tian all sorts of questions. Meng Tian was not used to telling long stories. She would reply bluntly whatever came to mind. However, when it came to the story of the Mountain Maiden, at that point in time, everyone burst out into laughter. With the speed of which girls spread news, even student Zhang Shan could only feel embarrassed in times to come. Zhang Shan sneezed. The dormitory seemed quite cold. It seemed as though something wasn't right. As Yao Ailun and Chen Shu listened to Zhang Shan's vivid description of training, their faces all turned pale. How was this a selection? It was basically a death camp. Zhang Shan did not exaggerate things. He had relied on the last phase of training for his comeback. On the other hand, Wang Zheng had remained silent from the start of his story till the end. It was like he had fallen asleep. Zhang Shan shot a glance towards Wang Zheng. From a young age, he had never been seen as incapable. Even when he was faced with something he was unable to accomplish, others couldn't even imagine the difficulty of his problems. However, he truly felt respect for Wang Zheng and his abilities. With someone like him, they would definitely rush into the skies above and make an impact. More importantly, if he were to battle alongside him, he would never have any regrets. Just before he left, Su Yan had also personally talked to Zhang Shan. What Zhang Shan lacked was a systematic form of training. He recommended him to go back and not take things easy anymore. At this point in time, Zhang Shan's potential had already been ignited. He had decided to abandon the path of a physicist. During the second round of selection on Demon Island, he would definitely lose the infamous title of the Mountain Maiden. On the other hand, in the female dormitory, Yi Zisu was quietly listening to Meng Tian's stories. Every time she heard of something that concerned Wang Zheng, Yi Zisu would anxiously clench her fists. It was as though she could live his experiences vicariously. And Mei sighed beside her. This was driving her crazy. During the period where Wang Zheng was not around, she had wanted Yi Zisu to meet some outstanding guys. That way, she could save herself the suffering. However, it was no use. When Wang Zheng was not around, Yi Zisu was dispirited and unenergetic, yet when he came back, she was back to normal. This was really driving her crazy. As sisters, and Mei really wanted to destroy Wang Zheng. However, Yi Zisu's words had left her speechless. As one lived, they would meet people they liked. This was already their greatest fortune. After IG training, these kids had been awakened. It was like they had a qualitative change. As a result, they felt quite uncomfortable in this peaceful and harmonious environment. Such a feeling felt foreign, as though it was from a previous life they had. At the same time, this was something that was difficult for them to feel again. Before sleeping, Zhang Shan was determined to wake up early. However, when he awoke, the sun was already high in the sky and his companions had left already. It seemed as though he could not control his body when it needed to relax slightly. Zhang Shan looked over at a neat and tidy bed. That B***tard Wang Zheng had woken up early again. He was like a robot. Regardless of the changes to his environment, he didn't react. How could he adapt so well? Taking a break for a day wouldn't kill him. Student Zhang Shan hummed a little tune as he brushed his teeth. He felt quite proud as he looked at his face, which held a trace of heroic temperament. He ruffled his hair. It seemed slightly long, and if he could cut it a bit shorter, he would seem more alert. Only then could he live up to his idol's image. Meng Tian had also woken up a bit later than usual. She first took a bath before attentively styling her hair. This was a habit she had. She was able to organize her thoughts as she sat there quietly. Even with a change in environment, she was able to adapt more quickly than others. Yet having an opportunity to rest and relax also made her extremely happy. That sort of strict training was truly unbearably tormenting. For these 2 days, other than maintaining her usual training, she would take the opportunity to relax. Although they were back in school, Gu Tae gave the group 3 days of rest. Everyone understood how intense IG training was. The 4 students being able to return unscathed was a blessing from the heavens, and he could not be cruel. Jong Runan had awoken early. She immediately went to the art club and unsurprisingly was the first one there. In the world of art, she would be able to obtain peace of mind and strength. In here, she had something she wanted to pursue. However, after experiencing the IG selection, her person had changed. Compared to the time before, she was now a little more calm and a little less willing to run away. Looking at the rays of light that passed through the window, she could see a crow occasionally fly by. This feeling was truly beautiful. Compared to student Wang, there was no change in him at all. He woke up early as usual, went for his morning exercise, and then proceeded to fill his tummy. If he had to make a comparison before the training in school, to him, the main difference was that one allowed him to eat his fill and the other did not. However, there were still minute changes to him. Wang Jung felt more carefree. Otherwise, he would not be able to be one with his environment. Furthermore, he had missed quite a few classes, so he would have to work hard to make up for the lost time. However, the notes for class had already been sent to his Skylink. He would just need to spend some time to catch up. For practical experiments, the school had given him the green light to use it freely, so there were no problems there as well. After all that had happened, Wang Jung did not change significantly. However, his and the team's success had brought about changes to their historic college. Before long, there were numerous students from other colleges coming and going through the now famous Aries College. Visiting other colleges was a time-worn tradition. However, it was usually people from less prestigious colleges visiting more prestigious ones. Aries College was a military college, so there were generally fewer females. Furthermore, they weren't allowed to show off their prestige, and as a result, few people paid attention to them. However, things were different now. The IG training results had been released throughout the colleges, and it had been announced throughout the internet in numerous different shapes and forms. However, the most famous individual was definitely not Wang Jung but Meng Tian instead. She was beautiful, intelligent, and also a goddess of war on top of that. Moving back to the 4 participants, they had become busy with their own activities. Summer vacation was approaching and so were their exams. Regardless of the reason, failing was something they did not want. On the practical aspect of things, they had experienced IG training and did not have to worry about it. However, when it came to the theoretical aspect of things, they had to quickly grasp the concepts. Tyrant Su had wanted to host a celebration but cancelled it in the end in light of the situation. There would be opportunities to do so in the future anyway. After busying himself for a week, student Wang had finished cramming the topics he had missed for the mecha and physics departments. Physics was pretty easy for him, so simply scanning through the information was sufficient. The mecha department topics, on the other hand, were very operational, hence it was easy to understand. With regards to memorizing information, although student Wang had a low gene score, his memory was still pretty good. The weekend had arrived and Wang Jung met up with Tyrant Su. He still had to comply with his contract, and he had not played CT for a while. It would be good to relax and go for a spar or two. It was quite unfortunate that the IG training did not possess any mecha training or battles, but it looked as though this would be part of the second round of training. Wang Jung was eagerly anticipating it. If it was the case, that would be wonderful and would just be too cool. Days without Skeleton around were usually quite dull. Solon spun his pen around his finger listlessly. His current position in the company was tied to Skeleton's success, and it was slightly challenging to maintain it. However, what truly worried him was how Skeleton would always appear out of the blue without a fixed schedule. Although Skeleton had defeated the Shadow of Atlantis as well as the strongest King of Mars in the previous battle, it did not deter any of the challengers who were interested in fighting Skeleton. Instead, it had only kindled the desire of more players who wanted to challenge Skeleton. Within the challengers were people from the tyrannical Clash of Kings competition. These experts had finally decided to show themselves. One of them was from Earth's Clash of Kings competition. In 2 years, he had obtained the title of the strongest player 7 times. He was part of the professional team COO and was their mid laner, the killing god. Bragging Simon, he had announced a challenge and was confident he would beat Skeleton. He also claimed that he had discovered Skeleton's greatest weakness. People who bragged like him were too many to count. However, Bragging Simon was not the same. He was one of Earth's brightest and strongest CT stars, so it was likely that he was not exaggerating. Furthermore, although he was known as Bragging Simon, his skill was truly at the top. He piloted his mech with monstrous skill and was calm and collected even in the heat of battle. His ability was proven time and time again during the Clash of Kings competition. When it was announced that Skeleton was online, the first challenger that came to Solan's mind was Bragging Simon. Like a well-trained military platoon, when Solan walked out, all of the staff started to work feverishly. Begin. Yes, boss. All of the people got to work. It looked as though the salary this month might be doubled. The CT administrators released an announcement, Skeleton vs Bragging Simon. It did not require any fancy advertisement. Bragging Simon never bragged. His position in the Earth's CT circuit was incomparable. Even in the past, the most popular players of the amateur circle were not even worthy of his attention. However, things were different now. Everyone wanted to see a battle between Simon and Skeleton to see who was the real god between them. From Simon's self-confident expression, it seemed as though he possessed a trick up his sleeve. Even numerous players in the professional circuit had chimed in with their views on the forums. They had also seen Skeleton's competition videos. His solo fighting abilities were unparalleled. In a group battle, although Skeleton's performance was decent, it was still dependent on one's ability. His team play was good, but not godly. However, in such a competition, people were not concerned about one's team battle abilities but rather their own personal strength. This was extremely important to professional players. One first had to have personal skill to reach the top. Only to rise further did they have to develop their strength as a team. However, without personal skill, it was meaningless to talk about one's team fighting abilities. Simon, who had been doing daily training with his core, immediately accepted the invitation. It has to be said that even his teammates were excited. Boss, our battle announcement has already been sent out to all the Skylinks. The number of people who have expressed interest in watching this match has already exceeded 600,000, the staff informed. Boss, Super Tide Web, Giant God Videos, and 10 over companies want to buy the rights for live streaming. Boss, do you want to pick up the chairman's call? Solan nodded his head. He could not respond slowly when it came to his boss. Solan, this competition will definitely be broadcasted throughout the solar system. If the battle is exciting, it might even be broadcasted throughout all the CT servers in the galaxy. McLaren spoke quite nonchalantly. However, deep down, Solan knew that his chance to shine had finally appeared. McLaren was planning to retire. However, before he retired, he had to find someone to pass the torch on to. Currently, he could choose to continue taking things easy and slowly accumulate a fortune before he retired, or he could strive for one last show and go out with a bang. After seeing miracle after miracle, McLaren could no longer stand by idly. It was clear that he did not want to disappear from CT quietly. Chairman, I am confident it will be a success. Excellent, go ahead and do what you need to do. If this is successful, I can push for you to be my successor. McLaren had let loose something absolutely shocking. It caused Solan to momentarily feel dizzy. Half a year ago, he had almost lost his job. Half a year later, he now stood a chance to be the chairman of Asia's CT region. What the FK? Was he dreaming? Solan told himself to stay calm as he took a deep breath. Chairman, I will definitely not let you down. After the call ended, Solan looked as though he had been infused with renewed vigor, much like how Popeye was after eating spinach. Let's do our best. He began to give out commands. It has to be said that the choice of an opponent was very important. Bragging Simon's influence was not only in that of the realm of CT. He was a bona fide online star. He was handsome and had numerous endorsements. He was the very best of the professional players and he was challenging an untested amateur. Just this gimmick alone attracted a lot of media attention. Hard selling something as compared to the product selling itself were two completely different ideas. However, what the majority of the CT players were focusing on was the fact that bragging Simon was known to be the insightful king. What was Skeleton's weakness? Tyrant Sue was a hardcore CT fan. The challengers from Mars were just pests. No one really knew who they were, except for Flaming Ronin, and that was just a one-off occurrence that did not inspire much talk. However, bragging Simon was different. The Earth was his playground, and there was no one who did not know of him. Bragging Simon was extremely confident and looked assured, which caused Tyrant Sue to feel a little perturbed. "Boss, do you want me to go gather some of bragging Simon's videos to let you have a look at how he plays?" Tyrant Sue asked as he opened up a video device. Wang Jung smiled. "No need for that, surprises are more fun." Student Wang was also interested in finding out what kind of tactic the opponent had developed. Since he was so confident, he definitely felt that he could beat Skeleton and would be quite skillful. In this case, even if Wang Jung wanted to beat him, it would not be so easy. Tyrant Sue proceeded to put away his video device. At the same time, the situation in all the major colleges and universities was the same. Everyone was hiding in their dormitories, Skylink open and ready to watch the livestream. With bragging Simon's influence, he had also attracted an uncountable number of girls. This was the advantage of having a handsome face. And May and friends were also in their dormitories. The few of them were dressed pretty casually. "May, where is Tyrant Sue? He isn't accompanying you?" And May rolled her eyes. "Wang Jung is back, so this guy has started to disappear here and there." Hee. May, you need to be careful. A good friend is one that is for life, a girl from the neighboring dormitory said. "Go to H*LL. Actually, I don't really mind that he's doing this," and May smiled. The girls let out peals of laughter. If any guy had heard this, they would definitely feel extremely thankful for such an understanding girlfriend. The usually soft-spoken and dependent sun goddess was actually so independent. 10 minutes later, Skeleton and bragging Simon were both online. Once again, two familiar faces could be seen on the commentators' table. Dear God and Little Bubbly were sitting side by side. As CT's #1 black-hearted Dear God, he had spent almost half a month recuperating from the previous encounter and was now lively and full of vigor. It was said that he had spent this time practicing and learning some philosophy too. Just looking at the aura he exuded, Old Dear indeed seemed to have changed. It could be that bragging Simon gave him confidence unlike any before. "Hello, everyone, we meet again. I know that everyone can see that I am very happy right now. It is my pleasure, along with Bubbly Foams, to be your commentators for today." For the start of the match, Old Dear seemed very formal. It looked as though he had rehearsed this. There were no indications of him doing anything different, and he remained calm. Bubbly Foam gave a slight smile. "Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. For today, on one side we have the hero of the masses, Skeleton. On the other side we have a true expert of the professional circuit, also known as the strongest king. The mid-lane killing god, bragging Simon. Both names should be familiar to you, so we won't be doing any further introductions." Before the battle, bragging Simon mentioned that he had discovered Skeleton's weakness. "Everyone, please stay tuned for this. I won't say any extra things. Currently, both sides are choosing the map," Old Dear said. A screen showing the map selection screen opened. "Ah, it seems as though bragging Simon has picked a professional solo fighting map." At this time, the discussion forum erupted. Numerous players were wondering deep down, could it be? At this time, the highly officious Old Dear was suddenly clenching his fist. As a professional commentator, he could see the problem here. All of the viewers were furiously studying the screen. For professional solo matches, it was possible to ban specific mecha from being played. What was an expert? What determined if one was an expert? It was someone who could use any mech. One had to be able to use all kinds of mecha. Many of such heroes of the masses were only able to use one mech skillfully. However, once they could not do so, they were finished. Their show was over and their piloting skills were a mess. It threw everything into chaos. Many people had overlooked this very simple fact, that Skeleton was best at the War God number 1. As the War God number 1 did not have an energy shield, everyone thought that this was most beneficial to their opponents. However, thinking back, what if Skeleton could not use his prized War God number 1? At the same time, bragging Simon smiled. He had chosen to ban the War God number 1 from use. FK. This was truly heaven-shaking. It was as though Skeleton had placed all his eggs in one basket. One knock and it would all be over for him. In fact, the first one who thought of this was truly lucky. Bragging Simon truly was the mid-lane king, one who could easily draw the first blood of the match. But was that truly it? In fact, one would be gravely mistaken. That would truly be looking down on Bragging Simon's intelligence. It would also be looking down on Dear God's intelligence as well. Hello, everyone, I would like to say a few words. The following broadcast might disappoint everyone. This is because it will just be a show where kids are being bullied by adults. Dear God had not merely revived, he had reincarnated with the spirit and energy of a raging god. Old dear, although the War God number 1 has been used exclusively, this does not mean that Skeleton cannot use other mecha, Bubbly Foam retorted. Old dear was motionless like a hill as he proclaimed, "Little Bubbly, you are still too young." Currently, Old dear was acting like a suspicious individual. The only thing missing from completing that image was a lollipop in hand to entice children. Some reacted to his words, but the majority did not. This was because most had already guessed that Bragging Simon would use such a tactic. After his mech was selected, the opponent had to choose another mech in his garage of mecha. However, when Skeleton opened his garage, it caused the 7 million viewers to be absolutely shocked. FK. It seemed as though he did not even possess the 4 basic Earth mecha. This Skeleton, had he even played CT before? After players had created an account, they had access to a few free mecha, such as the War God number 1. There were also some mecha used for maintenance available. All of these could be freely used and did not have any repair costs. However, the cheapest mecha for purchase were the 4 basic mecha. It would cost just $10. However, Skeleton did not even have such mecha. F***CK. He was so cheap that he didn't even spend $10? Brother, oh, brother, did you not even have any common sense to get alternate mecha? Wang Zheng tried to select the Hunter Type 3, but it could not be used. The system prompted that he had to pay, but he had already entered the matchmaking system and could not make payments to unlock it. Wang Zheng then flipped to the next screen and saw a few maintenance mecha. At this point in time, the entire audience had turned silent, and even Solon was stunned at this sight. He had never, ever imagined that Skeleton had never opened up the mech garage screen. This was common sense and one of the most fundamental things to do. Was he planning to use the War God number 1 forever? This live broadcast could not continue. Kiki, how will our god, Skeleton, respond? If it was me, I would quickly admit defeat and perhaps Bragging Simon might even give me a second chance, spoke Old Dear smilingly. Regardless of what happened, just giving up would make him feel happy. Old Dear's expectations were not much. He had to learn to enjoy life's little pleasures. In just a few moments, the entire audience was asking for the match to be cancelled and remade. However, the competition had started. Unless it was a technical failure, this would be considered a loss. If one did not have a mech, that was his own problem. It was his fault for not preparing. Bragging Simon had guessed correctly. This person was a smurf and had specially trained to use the War God number 1. He had not purchased any mecha at all. This was the Achilles heel of these self-conceited geniuses. They would not even do anything extra, like buying other mecha. The process did not pause, and 10 seconds later, Wang Zheng entered a mech, following which, an engineering mech appeared in front of the audience. He still wanted to fight. OMG's Hercules 5th generation. Its name sounded extremely oppressive, but it was actually used for farming. Its performance was nothing special and it had no energy shields either. However, what was important was that this mech did not have a laser gun nor an alloy knife. Did anyone ever see a farming mech bring weapons? On the screen, the Hercules could be seen wielding a shovel in its left hand and a hammer on its right. It truly seemed quite imposing. However, no one was excited. Wang Zheng did not know what Bragging Simon was trying to do, but he didn't care either way. If one wanted to pick someone else's mech, they had to own it themselves. It has to be said that CT was quite cunning. Even if one was not good at that mech, they would still have to spend money to buy it. Hence, Wang Zheng had chosen the war god number 1 to begin with. In Old Deer's words, was this just feudal resistance? Is today April Fool's? F***ck. I even abandoned my girlfriend for this. I'm doomed. God. Just kill me already. Bragging Simon is truly lucky. Sounds of outrage echoed all over the forums. Dear God finally started feeling invincible. Even the heavens were on his side this time. Kiki. True warriors will face even the bleakest circumstances head-on. Bragging Simon is truly the king of insight. His first blow has already drawn blood. I think that after this match, our little friend Skeleton will have learned his lesson. Let us cheer for Bragging Simon. The strength of our seniors is truly unmatched. Old Deer then began to clap loudly. At this point in time, the entire discussion forum was turned upside down. The heroic netizens thought of 36,000 ways to torment young Deer. However, all of these plans were useless as it was clear that Dear God would not care. His heart had already transcended such minor things. This was Skeleton's toughest battle yet. Although his previous opponents were strong, at least he was using a mech he was comfortable in. This time, however. Can you continue to watch this? I don't know. I can't take it, I'm just going to leave. Let's leave. I don't want my heart to feel this kind of torment. FK. This is a waste of time. If I knew this earlier, I would not have come. Granny's leg. I ran over here while I was still at work. If my boss finds out, I'm dead. Boss, the number of viewers has decreased by 500,000. The staff were now anxious. It had been a long time since a situation like this happened. It is continuing to drop. What do we do? Solon grasped the table. It was as though the table would be crushed by his grip. Oh, man. If Skeleton had trouble with finances, he should have just said the word, he would have been given every single mech. Other people made small mistakes, but the first mistake he made would take his life. However, it was now too late, the battle had begun. The Hercules mech. It was OMG's top-selling agricultural mech. Its current sales were excellent and it was one of the most important mech to the company. From the construction of the mech, the Hercules was made with good materials. As a result, the mech was not bad. Users of the mech gave it good reviews and also, as it was a maintenance mech designed for long-term use, it was durable and rarely had any issues. However, it was used to dig ditches and crush boulders. The skeleton core had already become Earth's largest CT core. However, this situation had also shocked all of them. Other people could choose to not watch the live stream, but as a member of the skeleton core, it would not be nice to do so. Student Rainbow's holidays had ended and he had gone back to his SWAT training. Yao Ailun and Chen Shu were in charge of hosting the overall situation, but this sight even left them speechless. At this point, it was not appropriate to chant their originally planned cheers. It seemed quite unsightly to say that the Hercules was undefeatable. Bragging Simon chose one of Earth's commonly used mecha, the Bata Type 5. It was clear that Bragging Simon did not use his professional super mech. However, even then, the difference between his mech and the Hercules was already heaven-defying. The Bata was the basic mech that Bragging Simon was most comfortable with. Its balanced ability allowed him to showcase the full extent of his skill. Looking at the Hercules, which was moving in an almost rickety manner, the audience did not know whether to laugh or cry. Now it's time for Deer's commentary. This Deer has created a survey in his Skylink blog. Everyone can choose to comment. Do you think that Skeleton will be able to last 5 minutes, or maybe 6 minutes, perhaps 7, said Comrade Old Deer, with a slight smile. His smile was light and carefree like the spring breeze. It truly showed that he had reached a new state of nirvana when it came to commentating. Black Deer was truly evil. At this point in time, Deer had received a message from the administrative staff. Did he want to make a bet with milk cartons again? Young Deer shuddered. No matter how he saw it, the opportunity in front of him was just too good to pass up. However, whenever he thought of milk cartons, his stomach would retch. Was there really a need to do this? Solon had no choice. He wanted to use such a move to incite the audience. Regardless if he was successful or not, he was finished this time. Deer was not foolish. It was better to be safe than sorry. Although it was unlikely that Skeleton would win, he felt no need to put himself in such a situation. He directly rejected the idea. Hello, everyone. Although the disadvantage is extremely great, I feel that as Skeleton has not surrendered, with his spirit, I think everyone should watch this to the end. Winning or losing is not important, what is important is one's will to fight, Bubbly Foam said attentively. Old Deer at the side started to laugh. To him, the process was not important, it was all about the result. I agree with Little Bubbly's point of view. How can everyone miss this opportunity where a miracle might happen? Everyone knew that Old Deer was being sarcastic. A few people were gathering milk cartons, hoping that if the chance arose, they would suffocate Old Deer with them. There were numerous people who asked Old Deer to bet on the outcome of the match with milk cartons. However, no matter how much they howled, Old Deer refused to budge. BTCH, it's time to teach this group of vagrants a lesson. He had no other choice but to stay silent. The competition was about to begin. Map: Roman Colosseum. Bragging Simon had given Skeleton no place to run. It was clear that from the previous competitions, Skeleton had used the terrain to his advantage, and this skill of his had been discovered. The audience had, even though that Bragging Simon had a conscience, considering he picked the Bada basic mech, but in truth, the Colosseum map was one that allowed one to demonstrate their piloting capabilities. There was no space to run, so the Hercules would definitely be destroyed. Boss, another 200,000 viewers have left. Although the number of viewers was still frightening, the staff felt as though they had been doused with a bucket of cold water. In the past, all of the matches had had a rapid increase in viewers without much being done. Now, after various tactics were employed to increase the viewer count, the numbers were dropping. Perhaps they were finally beginning to enter a period of slow decline? This could very well be the last match, could it be? Solon had no other options. He could not stop this match. Regardless, he was clear that the other members of management were quietly watching him. They were all awaiting his fall from grace. All of his results relied on Skeleton's performance. If he failed, forget about the promotion to the president of CT, he might not even be able to maintain his current position. To live was to go forward without retreat. Wang Zheng, on the other hand, was not worrying about such complex things. He was never picky about his choice of weapons. Yet the Hercules wasn't anything special. As a mech used for labor, the important thing was durability, and it was extremely stable. However, when it came to movement speed and agility, it was slightly poorer. This was something that was not obvious when being used day to day. Even if one had amazing piloting abilities, the mech itself imposed limitations on the pilot's abilities. Its weapons were a shovel and a hammer. The hammer was extremely heavy and not suitable for offense. The shovel, on the other hand. In the Colosseum, the Hercules waved the hammer in the air a few times before hanging it on the wall. Stop playing around with that toy. It might flatten someone to death accidentally. Is he going to use the shovel to smack the opponent to death? The problem is that the shovel is not strong enough. You guys are worried about the durability of the shovel? The Hercules was currently prancing around, executing a few exaggerated movements. Wang Zheng was currently testing the extent of the mech's abilities. It was not bad, there were some strengths to the mech. OMG's construction abilities were good. It even felt like the practice mech which Wang Zheng had tried in OMG's Beijing factory. However, using this mech prevented him from executing any exaggerated movements. Bragging Simon smiled. He threw the laser rifle in his hands onto the ground and unsheathed his alloy sword. Against such an opponent, if he had to resort to his laser rifle to win, it was no different from a loss. It was truly shameful. Battle begin. Following the sound of a bang, the Bada rushed forward. Its movements were fluid like flowing water. Bragging Simon's abilities could be clearly seen. The alloy sword flashed like a bolt of lightning towards the Hercules. Wang Zheng immediately used the shovel to parry the blows. Pung, ping pung pung. There was no doubt that it was a sided suppression of the opponent. The Bada furiously attacked the Hercules. On the other hand, the Hercules continued to wave the shovel gracefully, parrying the blows as he retreated backwards. There was no way to dodge the attacks. The Hercules' movements were too slow, so if Skeleton tried to dodge, he would definitely be sliced in half by the sword. OMG's shovel is pretty durable, excellent shovel. The audience was not focused on the technical aspects of the fight. There was not much skill involved, and hence it was not exciting in that regard. What they were curious about was how long Skeleton would be able to survive in his Hercules. Bragging Simon was not paying much attention to the fight. He was interested in the opponent himself and not the mech. Even if wanted to focus on the fight, the opponent had to be strong. His plan was to play around with the opponent before giving him another chance to have a proper fight after this. He wasn't concerned about winning in this fashion. He wanted to let the opponent learn a lesson. There were many experts around, and Skeleton was not the best. However, after 10 odd exchanges, Bragging Simon began to feel that the opponent's defense was gradually becoming stronger. The shovel was large, and it had actually turned into a strong point when it came to defense. It didn't require him to dodge much. Was he truly this stubborn? At this point, the crazily attacking Bada suddenly stopped and retreated a few steps backwards. The audience's hearts skipped a beat. What happened? Was Skeleton going to perform his finishing move? Bragging Simon pointed his sword at Skeleton. Are you sure you want to continue fighting this way? You don't want a rematch? Wang Jung smiled. After those brief bouts, he had finally gotten accustomed to the mech. To be frank, such an environment suited his mech. If the terrain was more complex, he would definitely be at an even greater disadvantage. Mecha with weak mobility would definitely be more easily trapped by the terrain, but the Colosseum was simple, and it suited him. What others saw as a disadvantage was an advantage in Wang Jung's eyes. He raised his shovel to point back at Bragging Simon. This was a declaration of war. Bragging Simon smiled. He had originally thought that he would just take out Skeleton after a few bouts to save him some face and that would have been the end of it. However, the opponent wanted to play. In this case, he would definitely not be as polite anymore. The Bada rushed forward explosively, bewildering repeating steps. FK. He was being serious. He was using his special move against a Hercules? Wang Jung closely followed the opponent's rhythm. Even with his skills, the mech's reaction time was just too slow. He could only do so much even if he could see through the move. Hence, in order to solve this problem, he had to play to his own strengths. Bang! The shovel intercepted the alloy sword. Without a doubt, the Hercules had finally counterattacked. The shovel parried the alloy sword aside and then proceeded to slash towards the Bada. The audience was bubbling with excitement. This was not a competition, they were watching a comedy. They wanted to see what tricks Skeleton possessed and were completely disappointed. So long as he did not lose too disgracefully, all would be great. Pung! Bragging Simon used the mech's backhand to knock the shovel away before preparing to retaliate. What a joke! The movement of the mech was just too slow. Its strength was insufficient, it was just looking to die. The stronger the attempt to counterattack, the more humiliating it was when they lost. Bragging Simon is about to use his killing move, the Pentastrike. The Pentastrike was a technical move. It was like the X-shot and the bewildering repeating steps. It was a very basic move with basic movements. It could be distilled into 3 parts. The stab, the slash, and then followed by another stab. Bragging Simon possessed the most agile wrists and was also able to execute the move with the greatest amount of force on Earth. Hence, he was able to execute 5 attacks in just a single set of movements. 1 stab followed by 3 slashes and then another stab. After his attack was executed, the opponent would have been destroyed unknowingly by those quick moves. At the moment, only Bragging Simon was able to execute the Pentastrike on a Bada Type 5. With how slow the Hercules was, after the blow was parried, its movements would have been affected even more and more. Even a mechanic would not be able to make it move quickly enough to dodge. If one wanted a good result, they would first have to sharpen their tools. The audience seemed regretful. It looked as though Bragging Simon was not planning to drag things out any longer. Seeing the Bada's posture, the audience knew what was coming. This move had caused the deaths of numerous professional experts. To execute the Pentastrike, it required one to possess an extremely strong body. The body had to enter an entirely anaerobic condition and still have the ability to execute the move, as it was performed too quickly. Many times, one's mind was not even able to follow through with the movements, not to say the body. Similarly, the one who was struck by the move also felt quite disappointed as they would be destroyed without being able to respond. It was clear that from the previous battles, Skeleton's ability to block was utterly marvelous. If he was in a similar mech, it might have been 5 blocked moves. However, Skeleton was using the Hercules, even moving quickly enough was a problem already. Bang! A sword stabbed forward. Bang 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 bang. Following 5 loud, clashing sounds, it was over. However, the explosion which everyone was expecting did not appear. The Bata Type 5 began to retreat quickly. The entire mech seemed to be staggering. The entire audience of 6 million had suddenly quietened down. What in the world had happened? Old Gear's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? It couldn't be. How could this be possible? Skeleton, was he a punishment sent by God to punish him? The Hercules had not only blocked the pentastrike but had even used the shovel and slapped the Bata Type 5. The previous exchange had been just too fast. Almost no one had seen what happened, including the numerous professional players. None of them saw what happened. The Hercules' shovel did not seem damaged. It was as though he had not blocked any of the alloy sword's strikes. What was going on? Bragging Simon's face was furious. How was this possible? Even professional players found it hard to block his killing move, much less an amateur. After a few seconds of silence, as no one had seen what happened and the commentators were not speaking, there was a deathly silence. This was because everyone saw a glimmer of hope. A tiny, tiny amount of hope. At this point, Bragging Simon became careful. The Bata Type 5 had slipped up despite having the momentum of the match. However, there was no need for all this. The Hercules mech was flawed. Other than being able to circle around, it did not possess many ways to retaliate. Everything was in his grasp, he only needed to attack. The Bata attacked viciously with its alloy sword. He rushed forward with everything he had. That previous exchange was definitely just a fluke. At this point, everyone's eyes were on the shovel. Ding 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 ding. Everyone saw it clearly this time. The shovel had rotated, dissipating the force of the attack. As a result, even if the strike only had just 10% of its original force after all that would already be considered a great result. BTCH. Was this something humans could even do? After seeing his killing move get blocked again, Bragging Simon's reaction slowed by just half a beat. He was not just a professional player for show. The problem was that this was just truly unbelievable. How could this happen? He could not even imagine such a sight in his dreams. At this point, the shovel lashed out towards him once again. Bang! The energy shield activated. Energy shield, God. The Bata Type 5 had to turn on its energy shield to fight a mech used for agriculture? This sight caused a roar of laughter from the people watching. In the midst of all the depressed moods, an unbelievable glimmer of hope had appeared. The slow-motion camera had finally shown what had happened. It was outrageous control of the mech. The Hercules only had one method to deal with the Bata. It was to rely on its special hand technique. Only the rotation of the hand could keep up with the opponent's speed. The Hercules' fingers spun the shovel around agilely. What was most important was not that the shovel could be spun quickly but that the rotation could sustain enormous amounts of force. At the same time, it could redirect the force and could stop the opponent's attack. F***CK. It would not be an easy game for me if I had to fight him. If the pentastrike could be described as a top-tier skill, then what do we call this shovel rotation? Wang Zheng's strike with the shovel was quite vicious. Although the Bata had an energy shield protecting it, it was still knocked backwards quite a distance. Without even including the audience, even the staff were stunned by this sight. They even began to suspect that they were dreaming and not actually working. CT had been around for a long time, and many tricks had already been discovered. Trying to find a new one was practically impossible. Agriculture mech, spinning shovels, what was going on? Boss, there are now 200,000 new viewers. Boss, this is truly amazing. The staff was going crazy. The screens showing the number of viewers had been steadily dropping, but all of a sudden, it was as though a magic pill had been eaten. The viewer count was once again flying through the roof. Bragging Simon had completely calmed down. Furthermore, he was a professional player, so regardless of the situation, he would approach every situation with the will to fight to the very end, even if the situation seemed incredible. The opponent was able to take advantage of the strengths he had and was able to showcase the full potential of the mech. If it was any other person, they would definitely have picked up the laser rifle and ended it. However, bragging Simon was not like that. The opponent definitely possessed a weakness. This could be seen in the opponent's movements. Every time the mech was forced to move, the movement showed flaws in it. This was the time he had to make his move. However, even after thinking for a bit, bragging Simon could not think of a way to penetrate the defense of that strange, rotating shovel. Hence, the Bada Type 5 adopted a defensive posture. At this time, other than those in the broadcasting room, on Earth, numerous people were tuned into this battle. Even some screens downtown were showing this battle. Bragging Simon with a Bada Type 5 was being suppressed by an unknown individual using a mech meant for agriculture. Was this a defiance of the natural order of things? In Brothers Net Cafe, the boss was currently watching on in trepidation with his daughter-in-law. Every time Skeleton was online, his business did exceptionally well. His business for that day would be as good as the business he had for a week. This man was his god of fortune. Skeleton definitely had to hold on. Many players had stopped playing. All of them were gathered together. In fact, most of them were here to watch the livestream. They were worried that if they left, they would have missed the opportunity to witness a miracle. They were at a loss. However, the professional players couldn't help but nod their heads. Bragging Simon was just too calm. This was a good plan. He had to force the Hercules to come to him. Would Skeleton move? Would he? The Hercules began to move towards the Bada Type 5. Would he rush towards the Bada? The numerous professional players' hearts skipped a beat. The Hercules relied on the rotating shovel to block the opponent's moves. Once he rushed forward, he would basically be a target board. Staying static would be the best move to make. If he attacked, bragging Simon would see the direction from which the mech was coming from and would take advantage of the low mobility of the Hercules and strike from a direction he could not react from. Bragging Simon made his preparations and waited. His time to strike was fast approaching. The distance between the two mechas slowly decreased. Just as bragging Simon was about to strike, the Hercules suddenly flew upwards. To be more accurate, it actually jumped upwards. This jump was not quick, but no one expected the Hercules to jump upwards. The distance between the two was not significant, and in a blink, it landed right in front of the Bada Type 5. It all depended on one's abilities now. The bragging Simon's sword hacked at Skeleton, but it was once again blocked by the rotating shovel. Dang 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 dang. A vicious flurry of attacks was launched. Bragging Simon had no other alternatives. One had to die as there was nowhere to run. A series of sparks could be seen as the weapons clashed. Pentastrike after pentastrike was executed. Bragging Simon was doing his best, but the rotating shovel completely blocked all his moves. Furthermore, the shovel was rotating quicker and quicker. God, he was borrowing the momentum of the strikes. Bragging Simon also understood what was going on. It looked as though his sword was being sucked into a vortex. He turned on his energy shield. This was the only thing he could do. Bang, wang wang wang. That rapidly spinning shovel flew towards the Bada Type 5. An earth-shaking explosion could be heard. The Bada Type 5 was knocked flying, its energy shields completely broken. An energy shield that could absorb almost 10 laser rifle shots was actually destroyed by 2 hits of a shovel. However, as the force of the strike was too great, the shovel broke. It was truly a savage blow. All of the audience members felt their hearts jumping. What was going on? The Bada Type 5's energy shield was destroyed. But the shovel was broken as well. At this point, the people suddenly realized that the Hercules was holding a huge hammer. The hammer was also rotating. At this point the system announced, Skeleton win. Bragging Simon had surrendered. Skeleton had achieved victory with a large hammer. At this point in time, the audience was over 10 million large. At the same time, there were almost 8 million VVIP viewers. This was a new record. The cheers were resounding. If anyone said that an agricultural mech could be used to beat a professional using a military mech, there were only 2 possibilities. 1. The person was crazy. 2. The world was crazy. In this case, the world indeed had turned crazy. It was the first time that a new special technique had appeared, rotating shovel. An unexplainable, heaven-defying special technique. Wang Jung was extremely happy. He could feel that the battle energy in him had increased by a large amount. This move was born out of desperation and played to his strengths. I finally realized why I've been losing. Why? I've been choosing the wrong mech. The war god number 1 is the god of war, but the Hercules is the true god. Hearing such cheers, student Ailun became cocky. Dear friends, you finally understand the strength of our true god. From the very beginning, I knew he would win. Stop lying, Ailun. Weren't you proposing for a second round? Haha. Enough, let him have his time. Following which, they were drowned by the innumerable cheers. Such a victory was truly breathtaking. Old Deer was sitting there in a daze. If things continued to go this way, he would definitely get Alzheimer's, even despite his age. A rotating shovel? This was truly out of this world. It was thankful that little Bubbly did not like to make fun of the people who were already down. If she was like him, his days would truly be quite hard to bear. This successive chain of victories was devastating on his outlook on life. All of a sudden, Old Deer let out a cry, "I will never believe in love again." Following which, he cried and ran off. Everyone was looking on at the scene in shock and wide-eyed. Had he gone crazy? However, he could not be blamed. Anyone else would have also gone crazy. The entire staff room was also cheering. Solon could not hide his excitement and fervor. This match determined his future. He had finally succeeded. "Everyone, you are going to get a 3 times bonus," Solon cried. His words were followed by even greater cheers as he was hoisted up by his staff. They were truly reborn. They had been vindicated. The battle had ended, but this craze had just begun. This was truly something that would resound throughout the solar system. Lai Guang quietly stared at the screen with unblinking eyes. He had finally returned. When one finally understood that they were not as strong as they thought, they would develop a fearsome strength. This rotating shovel had been imprinted deep into Lai Guang's mind. It had reached the pinnacle of basic skills. It was a simple action. The rotation was flawless. What was most important was that the Hercules was first and foremost an agricultural mech. It required immense wrist and finger strength to operate it. Yet the Hercules possessed a dexterity not unlike that of a magician. Its movements were as quick as a shadow. However, this was just one part of it. Just that alone would not have been amazing. Facing the opponent's rush, he was able to hold his ground and deflect the opponent's strike. This strength was truly heaven-defying. In Lai Guang's eyes, the 3 instances where the rotations blocked the strikes were completely different. The first instance was just a defensive move, a necessity. The second attempt was an active attack. The third and final instance was not to deflect attacks but to use the momentum of the opponent's strikes to increase the potency of the rotation to strike. That strike was truly that of a master. If he had developed such a move in the midst of battle, it would only show that his comprehension skills were godly. Have you finished your investigation, Patriarch? It is quite difficult to do so. The ID is not fixed, and if we were to take action, Chronos' side will think that we are. Lai Guang waved his hand. It's fine. This is not important. Who this person was not important. What was more important was that so long as this guy really existed, Lai Guang had the feeling that they would eventually meet. Oh, yes. Wait a minute. Help me do something and send this message out. Lai Guang smiled. Yes, Patriarch. The battle ended, but the live stream continued. Although Comrade Old Deer had ran off, Bubbly Foam continued to stay. Everyone was waiting for the video analysis to be out. This battle had demonstrated numerous high-level skills. The rotating shovel also required a professional explanation for it. The average technique, when shown in slow motion, would usually be easily dissected. Within 5 minutes, there could be an explanation for it. However, this time, it had already been 10 minutes, but the analysis had yet to be completed. The various amateur experts had already pushed out several theories. However, the results were the same. They were unable to bring out the true strength of the Hercules mech. Just how could the rotating shovel deflect the pentastrike? Solon was as anxious as ants on a hot plate. How could this be? The staff had no idea what was going on. They could not understand the essence of the move. The current skill level of the viewers were too high, so if the analysis was done shoddily, the staff would definitely be berated to death. However, what was fortunate was that up till then, no one had released an analysis that was sufficiently in-depth. Yao Ailun and Chen Shu were also hard at work. The two of them were professionals when it came to physics and mechanics. Under Chen Shu's lightning-fast coding skills, a three-dimensional image was being created. It was simulating the rotating shovel in several hundred simulations. Chen Shu was in charge of breaking down the move into its simplest parts, while Yao Ailun was in charge of analyzing it. The two of them were so excited that it was as though they had taken a tonic of youth. They were experimenting and wildly shouting. This was their bread and butter. They were extremely excited. Never would they have expected that a CT competition would require their skills in their specialties. At this point in time, Solon had received McLaurin's Skylink call. Although he was anxious, after receiving the call, he calmed down. Chairman Solon, you have performed excellently. You also settled the last situation well. The Lai family has even sent a token of appreciation. You should receive it. I believe it should solve this current problem. McLaren was as efficient as ever. When Solon received the files, he displayed it on the screen. At the same time, he was dazed for a moment. He did not berate his staff for being unable to analyze the move. It had surpassed the depths of their understanding. The rotating shovel's three different moves had caused everyone watching the analysis to be completely flabbergasted. At this point in time, the official video analysis had been released. The number of VIP viewers was quickly increasing. In the first part of the analysis, the slow-motion camera appeared. What seemed to be a simple rotation actually required the mech's arms, wrists, and fingers to be extremely dexterous in order to block the move. After all, the opponent was bragging Simon. It has to be known that the force absorbed by the rotation was immense. Even though it was CT, the move still required one to possess at least half the amount of dexterity as they would to do so in a real mech, so it was practically impossible to do this. The first rotating move would probably be imitated by players in the coming weeks, and if the mech was more capable, numerous people should be able to do the same move. The second rotation was then shown. It was obvious that it was not the same as the first one. While the first rotation required strong wrist and finger strength, the second rotation required the fingers and wrist to exert a strong burst of strength. The arm served as a bearing and the rotation was different. The aim was to unload force and not to absorb it. It made use of the rotational force to direct the move towards the enemy. Bragging Simon's pentastrike was extremely quick and it was a killing move. Being able to withstand the move a second time was truly amazing. Under the slow-motion camera, the pentastrike could be seen to be completely ineffective against the rotating shovel. When it came to the third rotation, it was the most shocking one. The shovel had actually penetrated the opponent's energy shield. Only a strike with sufficient force could do so. The live streaming desk was silent. For the rotating shovel's final phase, the entire arm and wrist of the Hercules mech had become a bearing. The entire move had relied on the finger's ability to exert strength. Furthermore, when faced with bragging Simon's pentastrike, it was better to say that the rotational force had managed to absorb the momentum of the assault. This served to increase the speed of the rotation and at the same time gave it enough strength to break through the energy shield. When the accumulation of force had reached its peak, the shovel was already releasing humming sounds. At this point in time, the godly shovel had smashed downwards. Forget the fact that it was a Bata Type 5. Even if it was a stronger mech, it would have also been smashed to death. Simply said, Skeleton's skills were truly expert. He had a super sense for comprehension, even in battle. Lai Guang also held back slightly. It was clear that the opponent was a disciple of a famous family. Although the opponent did not seem like he was from a family he already knew, it was not impossible that this opponent was from a disgraced family that had recently recovered. The solar system was the place where mankind originated from. Producing an expert was normal. However, there was no need to do anything at this point. The three rotating shovels were of three completely different worlds. The audience let out shocked gasps yet still felt like they had not fully expressed themselves. At this point in time, an awesome video analysis was released. It was released by the Skeleton Corp's Super Awesome Association. Similarly, under the view of a slow-motion camera, the rotating shovel's angle and force were completely dissected. At this point, Chen Shu's simulations were shown. It not only demonstrated the angle of the attack but also the amount of force needed. It also showed what sort of movements were necessary. It was broken down layer by layer. It was a completely different view compared to the official staff's video analysis, yet it complemented it as well. Chen Shu's analysis was very aesthetically pleasing. In the multi-dimensional model, the shovel could be seen to be rotating perfectly on its axis. All of the force was concentrated on one point. Looking at the mechanics behind it, there was intermittent rotation to maintain the spin, and there was only just a brief moment before the rotational force would lose control, which Skeleton had to use to execute the move. At this point in time, Skeleton's Hercules had launched its assault. After determining the direction, the following strike was an unblockable super attack. According to Chen Shu's estimations, in the last moment, regardless of the environment of CT, each of Skeleton's fingers had to lift at least 50 to 60 pounds of weight to be able to execute such a move. Although the first rotation could be mimicked, the third one was no different from a godly miracle. After the two video analyses appeared, they reached the top of the charts in terms of views. One analyzed the fight while the other analyzed the technicalities behind it. They completely analyzed every aspect of the battle. Among CT's numerous regions, the Hercules usage rate had increased by tens of thousands of times. The shovel had also become the most used weapon in numerous custom weapon battles. CT had 8 godly techniques. All of them were unexplainable. The truth was, these were all just jokes. Compared to the rotating shovel, that was the true godly technique. Furthermore, it was something that everyone could do. When it came to battling, how could one forget to bring a shovel? Chen Shu and Yao Ailun's video analysis had also been bought by Solon. The two of them had even acquired a tidy sum. With McLaren's full support, this battle was not only released on Earth but in the entire solar system. Furthermore, it had even entered the Milky Way Alliance's CT Battle of the Year. What Zissou and her family did not imagine was that because of this, 5 times the amount of Hercules mecha were sold. Half of the orders were from Earth and the other half were from other galaxies. This was an opportunity that had fallen from the sky for OMG, considering the fierce competition it had in the market. Ever since they had invested in the spatial movement theory research, OMG's luck had been improving. Yi Zissou was also quite surprised that luck had even fallen from the skies. In the following few days, Student Skeleton had become a hot topic. If his skills in piloting the War God #1 were merely decent, then his skill in piloting the Hercules was truly godly. It had completely swept away everyone in the solar system. In the solar system, there was an upsurge in popularity for this battle. Although it had to do with McLaren's promoting, there was a unanimous agreement that the solar system CT region had not seen such an amazing battle in ages. It has to be said that in CT's pursuit of creating a realistic mech experience, it allowed for the potential of a mech to be shown in its full glory. On the list of most popular battles, Skeleton vs. Bragging Simon had rushed to the top. Numerous individuals began to practice using the Hercules. Bro, please stop. If you want to practice, why don't you go to the training area? Don't play games and ruin us. Do you think you are as good as Skeleton? F***ck. It can't be. Not another one. I've already met 3 people playing the Hercules. They dragged down the team each time. All of a sudden, another person guffawed. No worries. The opponent has 2 Hercules, haha. We are going to win. This time, there were pitiful things that happened, and even more pitiful things. It was easy to rotate the shovel. The problem was that it was difficult to pull the move off in the pressure of battle. There were some people who sought to find inspiration in battle, or to brag. It was clear that in the coming weeks, the advancement matches would be paved with tragedy. It would depend on whose luck was better and not who was more skilled. Perhaps she wanted to compete with Skeleton, but Lin Weiyan had also released a new song. As Princess Weiyan had visited Earth, she had become a lot more famous in the solar system. Her new songs immediately rushed to the top of the charts. The song was a love song, I Really Miss You. It had a tender and mellow feel to it, especially since the song was about a certain girl's ignorant thoughts and feelings of infatuation. It had instantly mesmerized numerous youths. This was Lin Weiyan's style. It was clear that after experiencing Not Afraid, War of the Blind, and My Heart Would Go On, her songwriting had improved greatly. Previously, she only relied on a sweet voice and her beauty. However, her songs now also had a certain soul to them. Even some of her harshest critics had a change of tone. Only those who had talent could sing this way. Who would have expected Wee Yin's improvement to be so large? However, to her fans, this was truly like a gospel. To the majority of youth idols, there always existed the perennial question: would they choose to embark on the road of innocence and cuteness with an open private life? However, any drug addictions or scandals would destroy that image. Regardless of how open a society was, deep down, they pursued a specific ideal aesthetic. However, one's requirements of others was always greater than that of themselves. Numerous large agencies sought to create such an idol that was innocent and untarnished. However, after being popular for several years, these idols would eventually pursue happiness and other materialistic desires instead, ruining their original unblemished image. The idea of an innocent idol was not realized until today, in the form of Lin Weyin. As an Aslan princess, she was a true member of royalty, an innocent princess. Her identity alone was enough to ensure that. In fact, among the numerous empires, Aslan was most strict about the image of their royalty. It was almost as if they did not live in a modern and open society. They possessed strong beliefs, and their princess was their representative. Hence, fans were not worried about Wee Yin falling into a life of debauchery. Hearing Lin Weiyin's grieving sound, numerous fans started to tear. It was clear that this song had moved their hearts. The person who had written the lyrics was known as Little Z. No one had ever heard of her before, and her fans thought that she might have been a newcomer to the industry. This song is just too amazing. Meng Tian, what do you think? And Mei asked. Meng Tian let out a wry smile. It's not bad, Che. I'm beginning to wonder if you're really a guy in disguise. Qingqing, do you like this song? It's really emotional. Du Qingqing was wearing earphones, her head swaying gently with the music. Yi Zisu listened to the song again and again. Wee Yin sang the song a lot better than she did. She had only done this wistfully and had never imagined that she had been chosen. Perhaps Aina would hear this song, but she was not afraid. The previous training was considered a success, however, to some, it was meaningless. For example, how did Lear feel about it? As the hope of Earth, the successor to the Kronos family, Lear was burdened with numerous things. Originally, as Lear was young, he was not expected to be responsible for many things. However, his parents had died in a military incident, causing many of the plans of the Kronos family to turn into dust. Hence, when he was young, Lear knew that he was the only hope left for his family. No one knew just how much longer the Kronos family's old patriarch would survive for. When facing his own grandfather, old Kronos, Earth's #1 politician, Lear was extremely respectful. He had never seen his grandfather smile before, but today, old Kronos was actually smiling. Lear, you have performed excellently. Lear nodded. He did not know if old Kronos was being sarcastic. Ever since he was young, regardless of what he did, his grandfather was never pleased. Old Kronos looked at Lear. He knew what he was thinking. Being strong does not mean that one is brave. Showing one's strength is necessary, but hiding one's ability will allow one to have the last laugh. Your father never understood this point. Grandfather, what are you trying to say? Old Kronos waved his hand. You don't need to think too much. It is not a conspiracy. Even if it is, it's out in the open. Belief is a good thing, but one has to survive on their own. I need to tell you some things today. Lear listened quietly. He did not feel that what old Kronos was talking about was something important. All of his decisions were made with his own judgment, and there would eventually be a time and place for him to show his true colors. Blindly keeping a low profile would not allow him to become the king. However, there was no need to show his strength just yet. One should focus on what needs to be done. This was just a small matter. The 16 skies refinement you've been cultivating is merely just the start. From today onwards, you will cultivate the 64 sky refinements. If you are successful, you will truly rock the world, old Kronos said. At this point, Lear was dazed. 64 skies? Grandfather, how can this be possible? This is a long story. From the long annals of mankind, there once appeared 2 heroic kings. They were from Earth, our ancestors. The 2 of them dominated the world. One of them was known as Li Feng and the other was known as Wang Dong. The two of them walked different routes but had conquered the world all the same. Note that the Li Feng is Li Feng, which is the same Li as Lear's Li Er. There were two of them, Lear asked. However, in the official history of mankind, these two individuals did not exist. Only in some unofficial sources, traces of these two could be heard of. How could men wield the power of gods? Old Kronos' mouth turned up into a sneer. Politics is the breeding ground for scum. The winner is the king. Mankind had almost been destroyed, but because of the appearance of these two men, they were saved. Furthermore, technology also took a significant leap forward. How else would they have the strength to rule over the Milky Way? But since they were so strong, why? Lear could not believe it. A strong person would definitely leave behind a strong legacy. How could they just have disappeared? This is mankind's history's biggest secret. The first generation Li Feng mastered unfathomable scientific and technological power, possibly that of an extraterrestrial civilization or that of the universe. The second generation Wang Dong grasped the strongest internal art and sparked a century of genetic evolution among mankind at the same time. At this point in time, mankind's fleshly body was so strong that they could crush the heavens. The current ability X cannot even hold a candle to it. Old Kronos looked engrossed in his deep thoughts. Although he had never seen it, he had explained it the same way his own father had. Not being able to live in the same era was truly unfortunate. If this is true, how did they disappear? How can a beggar possibly understand a king's thoughts? That era is from long ago. Almost no one knows what happened. However, Li Feng's achievements were greater than that of Wang Dong's. The Zerg's main forces were destroyed in the solar system. Furthermore, a terrifying thing happened. Lear did not consider himself to be a curious person, but what he had heard up to now had shaken his entire world. It seemed so illogical. The Zerg had begun to evolve, gaining traits of humans. Those bugs felt that we were too terrifying. A pity that in the final battle, they were all defeated by Wang Dong. Mankind had finally defeated the last obstacle of their voyage through the stars. Old Kronos swallowed some of his saliva while looking attentively at Lear before giving a wry smile. At that point in time, Wang Dong had demonstrated the strength of a god. However, after that battle, he disappeared. Mankind prospered in the following decades, but at that point, another problem arose. What exactly happened, I am unclear of, but mankind seemed to have received some form of divine punishment after infringing upon the powers of gods. Mankind then seemed to have suffered an unprecedented catastrophe, one of their own making. How could this have happened, grandfather? How could this be true? Kiki. In this world, there are few things that deserve our faith. This story can be used to serve as a reference, a more reliable reference to what truly happened in the past. After the catastrophe, mankind had changed from one that initially pursued only science and technology, to one that focused on genetics, to the one we know today, a combination of both genetics and science. As it turns out, this was the best choice as mankind has never suffered a catastrophe again and we have been able to dominate the Milky Way. Old Kronos was so enthused that it seemed as though he had experienced this part of history himself. When they had reached this point of their lives, fame and fortune were no longer things that they sought. What they hoped to do was to achieve something heroic, something that would resound through the annals of mankind. After that point in time, the Solar System Federation completely purged all of the internal arts that could change one's genes. Many families fell into tragedy as a result, and even their temples were ransacked. A few mighty families were even destroyed. However, this also happened to create an opportunity for our Kronos family. We were the ones who had led the obliteration of these families as the one leading the government at that time. Lear looked dazed. Then the sky refinements. Old Kronos gave Lear a calm look. Lear immediately understood. Purging the others was meant to snatch power from them. The aim was not destruction alone. Since they were so strong, why would they be sitting ducks, waiting to be destroyed? Now that is the key question. The strength of internal arts had been gradually weakening. In the war against these temples, things were extremely strange. Although the internal arts were still there, the people had disappeared. Even our own internal arts had been gradually weakening year by year. In the end, it could only be used to develop one's fitness. However, now that we have found out that it can help to advance one's ability X, we have to take it step by step. If these internal arts are not cultivated properly, one will be in danger. I believe you already know that this is the only way for you to occupy a place in the future competitions. This will then allow our solar system to rise again. Internal arts had caused the decline of the solar system. When it was found that these internal arts could strengthen ability X, the families of the Solar System Federation could finally see hope that they could be restored to their prime. During that year's turmoil, the Lai family had preserved their internal art. This likely had to do with their immovable relationship with the jail of Mars. This event was truly earth-shaking, but it was only an empty gap in the annals of mankind's history. During the following times of peace, this part of history was completely rewritten. Unfortunately, after the end of that heroic era, it looked as though the solar system's destiny had run dry, and ever since then, they had only declined. Old Kronos gradually awakened from his memories, his gaze suddenly turning sharp. All you need to know is that you just have to understand what has happened. Times have changed, and the only family that possesses the legacy of internal arts is us. The moon's legacies have disappeared, but Mars still possesses the Lai family. Our days of glory will start from Earth. It is mankind's source, and it is the will of the heavens. You have to grasp this opportunity, bend heaven's will to your control and become that person. Looking at the passionate old Kronos, Lear felt very calm. To him, this was nothing more than a story. The strength that he wanted was something more tangible. Regarding Lear's calmness, old Kronos was not angry at all. On the contrary, he was very happy. Lear seemed as immovable as a mountain and possessed his own judgment. This was what old Kronos truly expected of him. Some people were different. Lear was like this. He was far, far stronger than either his father or old Kronos himself. Thinking back, the first time he had heard this story, he was completely mesmerized. Lear's father was also completely enthralled by the notion of these internal arts. Neither of them were able to stay as calm as Lear. Droop. Yes, patriarch. When the voice sounded out, Droop appeared out of the shadows like a ghost. On the contrary, Lear did not react. Bring him along, old Kronos said plainly. Droop nodded respectfully. Young master, please follow me. Droop looked shaken. The day had finally come for the great Lear to start a new chapter of his life. His very existence was for the sake of his family. Although silence was restored in the room, old Kronos's gaze was fiery. There was finally hope to achieve the dreams that the Kronos bloodline had fought for generations. Actually, he too could tell a palatable tale of how even a pirate became a prince, but this was not something old Kronos would do. Winners were celebrated and losers were vilified. Only through victory then could they become undisputed kings. After Li Feng and Wang Dong, the victor capable of bending even the will of the heavens could only be the one and only Lear Kronos. The skies outside were azure blue, with only sparse flowers of cloud floating in silence. It was like the universe was mocking both the insignificance of human race and the overwhelming nature of human ambition. As the wheels of history continued spinning, the glory of the past was already long gone. Only Earthlings could take all this to be their lives' responsibility. What then lay ahead? No one knew. However, miracles were often just born like this. The larger the heart, the larger the horizons. The following days were very cozy, like that of a summer vacation. Wang Zheng and friends were rushing to consolidate their learning. The professors sometimes turned a blind eye since no one would seriously kick any of these four heroes out from the academy. In reality, regardless of whether it is Wang Zheng, Zhang Shan, Meng Tian, or Zhang Runan, they were all very serious. None of them were obnoxious and arrogant just because of a little achievement. Among the four of them, the only one who warranted some attention was Zhang Shan. His school-based fan club was particularly active. Using Zhang Shan's words, he would like to find a girlfriend from the club, but in reality, Zhang Shan had exhausted all his time and energy on training. He did not want to be fall behind in the second phase. Yet another piece of good news. Leader Xiao Fei's research team had applied for an Alliance Technological Prize and was accepted. The military academy's website was revamped yet again. The red background transformed into an even more festive shade. The principal was making a speech that same night. Based on the image on screen, his face was red, as though he had drank something. I am sure everyone has seen the news. Two pieces of good news. Firstly, it is almost summer break. Secondly, Wang Jung and his fellow students have won the prize for the Milky Way Alliance University Technological Achievement Award, which is given once every 4 years. This is the second time the school has won such an award. The whole school is proud of your achievement. Let me now announce that for all students taking the final exam, there is an opportunity to retake the exam if necessary. Principal Ji Yute was obviously overjoyed. Making such an insensible comment, he had clearly thought through beforehand how such a move would radically change the learning atmosphere. If the school lacked the environment to promote learning, these students may not choose to work hard. With another chance for examination, this would motivate students and perhaps even save a few on the line. The entire military academy roared. Long live the principal, long live Wang Jung, Professor Xiao Fei, we love you. A particular student who went overboard in his shouting was assaulted. The nail that stuck up mostly got hammered down. The supposedly glorious Wang Jung let out a bitter smile. Can we not go? Training was very draining, and Wang Jung wanted to use this break to examine the Rubik's Cube. No, as the representative of the academy, do you think you can just not go? Even if I do let you off, will Ji Yute let you off? Xiao Fei stared at Wang Jung. What kind of guy was this? As the university student who had just won the highest honors, he just pretended as though nothing had happened. He was clearly a great talent in physics, but instead he chose to join the mecha department. Well, being impractical was fine. It was good to have dreams as a youth, since one would eventually learn to acknowledge reality and get back on track. Mecha were for ignorant teens, and there was no future in that field. The important thing was that the first person who had ever won such an award for the academy was Xiao Fei. Now that her disciple had won too, should such news spread, it would be simply wonderful. One would have thought that since IG was such a huge competition and was filled with all the talents of the solar system, Wang Jung would have been eliminated in no time. The news of Wang's unexpected stellar performance spread like wildfire. Now she not only had to share Wang Jung with Ji Yute, but she would also have to compete with the military for this piece of talent. Given that news sources had also confirmed that Wang Jung won the Technological Achievement Award, how could he forsake such an opportunity to experience the strength of the scientific community in such a moment of glory? No way, he had to go. Wang Jung still struggled in thought. Xiao Fei pretended to be somber, mimicking a scene from the movie she saw. Don't you forget, the fact that you could even attend IG was because of my signature. I can revoke that at any time. Besides, you can expand your horizons by going to the Milky Way Alliance headquarters. Be good. Indeed, she used a carrot and a stick to convince him. Wang Jung lowered his head and his eyes flashed. He was feeling a little dizzy since he had to pull an all-nighter with Professor Xiao Fei. Nested in those loose clothes, something was so white and deep. It was often said that seeing cleavage led to arousal. In spite of her not wearing underwear, her cleavage was still seen. This was arousing enough that even a mountain would burn up in flames. Speak. Xiao Fei was totally oblivious to the problem at hand. Yes, Professor, you are right. This will be a great, eye-opening experience. I must follow in your footsteps and press on bravely. Wang Jung caved in. He had no place to hide. Speaking sense to Xiao Fei was not tenable. He had no chance of winning from the onset. That said, getting to see the Milky Way Alliance headquarters did not seem bad at all. Xiao Fei nodded with a satisfied smile. Having Wang Jung see the power and glory of the scientific community may not cause him to abandon the thought of being a mecha pilot immediately, but with such a thought planted, it would eventually flourish. Suddenly, Xiao Fei noticed that Wang was acting strangely and lowered her head to take a look. While working all night yesterday, because her bra made her chest feel stuffy, she decided to remove it. As soon as she received the news, she forgot to wear it and left the house immediately. From afar, it was nothing much. However, up close, on a summer day, some things were inevitable. Xiao Fei lifted her head, putting up a smile. Did you enjoy it? It was okay. Wait, what? Wang Jung coughed. He would bet $100 that Professor Xiao Fei's professional boundaries had only become clearer in the past 2 months. However, he was also not exactly sure. After all, he was not a player. But since he was not a player and yet he felt something, it only proved that she was fairly eligible. Pretty good, is it, little brat? You dare to take advantage of even your own professor? Hurry up and work your brain to death. Make some progress on your theory, otherwise, don't you dare come out of your lab ever again. Wang Jung responded politely, yes, ma'am, I will definitely complete my work. What an unhesitant response. Did you take notes from Yi Zisu? She is a pretty good lady. This trip to Roland Garros required conducting a lot of experiments, including spatial transfer. All of that money was provided by OMG, Xiao Fei winked. Wang Jung laughed again. Professor, you are mistaken, she is just a good friend whom I have known since high school. Well, I didn't even say anything, you assume that everyone is into you, said Xiao Fei teasingly. Wang Jung shrugged his shoulders in resignation. Knowing that she had to win every argument, his best response was just to stop retaliating. Apart from Yi Zisu, Tyrant Su also wanted to go to Roland Garros. Since the Yan family was the sponsor for the research, and Mei naturally followed for the trip. Now that it was summer break, and Mei had found a part-time job in Little Fortune Star Company. Although Yan Xiaoshu asserted that he could be the secretary for the trip, he just wanted a company-sponsored trip. On the other hand, the Yan parents had a totally hands-off approach to parenting now that their son was all grown up. Even during a meet-up with friends, they no longer discussed matters regarding their son. As the Milky Way Alliance government center, Roland Garros was basically not open to tourists. However, it remained as one of the top tourist destinations. Every country of the Milky Way Alliance had an embassy in Roland Garros. Every embassy was characterized by a unique cultural architecture that defined their respective countries. Touring Roland Garros was essentially experiencing all of the cultures that made up the Milky Way Alliance. However, going to Roland Garros not only required money but also required a special permit. This permit was not only of short validity but also restricted one to the embassy of one's nationality. As summer break approached, everyone became more lively. At the same time, Wang Jung began his journey to Roland Garros. The new Olympus had a length of 2,800 meters and width of 832 meters. It boasted an impressive exterior and possesses 3 main cannons as well as 126 other automatic artillery guns. This was one of Earth's ambassador ships. Rattling off technical specifications was easy, and it was nothing compared to the impulse to pilot it for Wang Jung. The new Olympus interior was smaller than he expected. Touching and feasting his eyes on the interior of the ship brought him great physical gratification. Flying the ship was a fantasy that he could only dream about. Enough, any more will be embarrassing for us. Xiao Fei was the leader of this team. Wang Jung's behavior was indeed embarrassing. However, Wang Jung's response was even more infuriating. He claimed that he was a fighter and not a scientist. This ship structurally had a large capacity and hence he was definitely sure that it had possessed a secret compartment. However, this would not be the main processor area. Perhaps it was for operating the cannons, or maybe it served as the power source. Tyrant Su nodded fervently. He was so shaken that he could hardly speak. The systems, the mecha, and the ship itself were all passions of men that could not be understood by the likes of women. And Mei, who was serving as Yan Xiaosu's secretary, was wearing a pencil skirt which was typical office attire. Tyrant Su muttered that if there was something to do, the secretary should do it. If there was nothing to do, then he would do the secretary, and Mei rolled her eyes and quietly swore that she would never be Tyrant Su's secretary again. On the other hand, Yi Zisu was wearing plain, simple clothes paired with exquisite accessories. She appeared elegant and seemed very appropriate for the occasion. Wang Jung made a ruckus throughout the journey. The accompanying soldiers were wearing faces of passive aggression. However, their superiors gave explicit commands to respect Xiao Fei, a scientist who had the status of a national treasure. With such a rare accomplishment that required them to reject honoring Aslan migrants and instead choose to honor Earth's accomplishments, as long as Xiao Fei did not dismantle the new Olympus, regardless of her actions, the soldiers were told to accommodate it. Hence, they struggled to tolerate Wang Jung's unruly behavior. Should their junior officers exhibit such behavior, they would immediately be sentenced to death.